Welcome back to the Vitera vlogs. This is part 8 of a series covering my team's progression in the new server Vitera. This video will cover from level 431 to 501, which took us about 28 days. On the previous episode, I ended up having to do a hunt for the most part, and the last team hunting we did was at Ingold Surface. And now we were ready to move on from there. So we decided to start hunting Ice Library, although perhaps a bit too low level for it. On our first hunt, I was the highest level at 430, and the rest of my team was between 400 to 430 as well. And in the case of Ice Library, I will say the most important vocation will be the EK and MS, since this is a spawn where the majority of damage goes on him with Summon the Paladin, and the mages are usually safe from their Firebomb runes, but the MS gets to use both ways constantly, and that adds up a lot of healing turns for UHs, which is very important for the low level hunts here. So in order to work for the charms first, we started to hunt with double defense sprays, but besides that, another thing that does make a big difference is having items with extra ice protection, like in my case, the Antler Horn Helmet and Frostflower Boots. Of course, the Turtle Amulet is almost a must-have, and ice protection imbuements as well. All of that was giving me a lot of ice protection to add on top of defense and sprays. I also started by using a two-handed fire weapon, but that was a mistake. A few hunts later, I started using an ornate shield with ice imbuement, and that made the hunts so much easier, plus made it so that I could drop one defensive prey, and even two if I wanted to. But since we still didn't have charms, I continued to use one prey. For the most part, we continued to hunt on Ice Library, doing around the 5kk route without charms, but our paladin was still going through some stuff in real life, so he will still miss out some days of hunts. Some days we still remain Ice Library, since we wanted the progression on charms. On other days, I will hunt with different teams, especially on weekends, which my team will skip, so I got a second team for weekends only, and with them I was hunting in flinces. This is a very underrated spawn for team hunts. It is highly popular and contested for high level paladins or sorcerers, but that's not a thing in new servers, so teams can hunt here, but often choose not to, and for good reason. It is a hard spawn to pull off. It comes with a lot of creatures on every pull, and the lab can be confusing for most people. I will be breaking down this spawn for team hunts in an upcoming video, so consider subscribing for that. But for now, what I can tell you is that our experience was around the 4.8kk raw, so very close to Ice Library hunts with my team, but of course not counting the charms yet. And after a couple days my team got back together and the Ice Library hunts continued. This is a spawn that we stay on for way too long, because it is a great spawn, but that also comes with a downside. It tends to get contested, and even more during a new server, where it is one of the best spawns possible, so for that reason we came up with a backup. In the case a team was hunting on the main area, we will do an alternate lap which involves the middle area of the library. This is something that is never seen by low levels, and once again for a good reason. It is considered the hard lap, and is only used by high levels to avoid overkilling. And even that is uncommon, because by then they can hunt better spawns. But for us, my sorcerer and paladin were holding praise, and also charms were set up, so it was better for us to continue in Ice Library even if that lap was inferior in experience, which is not that bad if I'm being honest. It normally sits at 15% less experience than the regular lap, which at our peak will get up to 6.2kk raw in the low 450 range, but closer to 5.8kk in average, and the alternate lap will sit at around the 5.4kk. But to be fair, with a better druid, we got it up to over 6.2kk raw at later levels. Anyhow, we continue to do mostly Ice Library as a team, with our first hunt on June 12 at level 430, and by June 24 I was 555, with a few days escape in between or different hunts. But during that, on June 21st, the Bwish Event started. This is a world event that consists of keeping the Witch's Cauldron active. Every 8 hours, it will ask for 200 creature products, randomly selected from a predetermined list. This is an event that heavily relies on luck, as most of the creature products are common, with the exception of Goblineers and Lancets. In the case of Goblineers, most servers tend to be able to pull one roll of them, but if you get two, then the event usually fails. In our case, we got lucky and Vitera managed to complete the event. And the reason of why all of this is relevant is because if the server completes the event, then you gain 10 days of an extra 50% of experience bonus. And this bonus started on the 26th of June, so with that the grind started. We will do the usual 2-hour hunt as a team on Ice Library, whether it was the normal lap or the alternate one. I will throw in some solo hunts at the end of the day, and duos in some cases if the team didn't make it for that day. This went on for a few days. I also should mention that Ice Library is by no means an easy spawn, and there were a lot of deaths for me and the paladin. but to be fair, we were pushing the spawn more than average. The first 5 days of the event being active, we only team hunted 3 of them. And Friday to Sunday, it was mostly duo hunts. The spawn of choice for duo hunts was the Isabe Crypt. This is actually quite good, although mostly used by solo Ikes, and it's because both the Sphinxes and Crypt Wardens are weak to death damage. So it's one of the best spawns to use the one-handed soul weapons, which I ended up buying at around 450, since it was also good for the Ice Library hunts. Using that makes this spawn much more viable, going from like 4kk raw average without the soul weapon to over 4.6 with it. And once I realized the experience was good, then I started doing 1 hour a day there on the days my team was around, in order to get more out of the experience bonus, and the event finally came to an end at the 6th of July, where I went from 455 to 486. Considering I didn't get to team hunt every day and I also had 3 deaths plus 2 close calls, I was pretty happy with the result. But wait, there's more, because right after the Bwish Event bonus ended, we got a double experience weekend, so even more experience to be made. These double experience tend to be the exception to our casual approach, where we normally do only 2 hours Monday through Friday hunts, skipping weekends and sometimes even days during the week, but during doubles we do hunt on weekends and usually try to do 3-hour hunts a day. So for the first day, I went from 486 to 491, gaining on average 5 levels a day, and ended the double at level 501, reaching a cool milestone of level 500. And in case you don't know, these characters were created on the 16th of February, so going from 0 to 500 took me 143 days. Needless to say, a lot of days were skipped, and other days I grinded more than just 2 hours with my team, and not that many experience boosts were used either. So overall, I am pretty satisfied with the results. It was quite fun for us, but around this point is where it started to get much harder to enjoy and continue, but I will be leaving that talk for the next part. So consider subscribing if you enjoyed the content, and if you want to support it further, please do so with Tibia coins to Gudii donation. Thank you for watching, and a special thanks to Tuna Hero, Night Star and Torta Slasher.